The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those Knuckleheads of Liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming at you on Halloween 2022, 10/31. It's not just scary because it's Halloween. It's scary because that always means it's election season too, and you never know what kind of crazies we're going to be getting in there. We are going to talk about Second Amendment things, which really seems to scare the bejesus out of the left every time. So hopefully we can leave them with a little bit of a fright at the end of this show. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And in our upper right-hand corner, we have returning for the third time to the show, so he gets an honorary name here too now. That's Sam the Cannon Paredes. He is executive director of the California Gun Owners Association. So we're glad to have him here to give his expertise on some of these issues that we'll be talking about today.
And he has, I can see he has an itchy trigger finger.
Yes.
But by the way, before we get into any of this, are any of you guys wearing costumes this year for anything? It's 10/31. I mean, I've got a costume right here. I'm here by myself, and I'm going as an idiot because I'm here all by myself. I'm following Fauci's advice. So, anyways, so let's jump into some of these.
That would have been at the Halloween party last year, but you didn't have a Halloween party because everybody was socially restricted.
Exactly, and you know, it's funny. Even if I met somebody like Fauci or Gavin Newsom at any party, I'm sure they wouldn't be wearing the costume mask either. They'd be smiling, you know, and showing their pearly whites while they expect you to wear them.
Exactly. They would be like Eric Gassetti telling you he was holding his breath while he was in the company of others.
Well, you know, I tell you, though, what's really scary is when the government turns around and they release all of your personal data to the public. So maybe we could get a visual on this one. So earlier this year, California actually released the names. Let's see. It was the date of birth, the gender, race, driver's license, addresses, and criminal history. Let's see. It says Social Security numbers weren't given out, but still, that's an awful lot of data that California released for gun owners. And I tell you, this is kind of scary. And you know, they said it was an accident, but then it looks like California is trying to have laws that allow them to share personal information, I guess, at least with researchers and stuff. So, you know, I'm not sure, you know, how much of an accident this was, but regardless, boy, I tell you, these bad things just seem to go one way in places like California. What do you guys think about this? This state just sort of releasing, sharing information about gun owners.
I'm interested in Sam's take.
Yes, me too.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And I have no more fun on any other podcast interview than I do here. I enjoy it. You guys are great. So thank you for the opportunity. The fact of the matter is that the release, and people say it was a data breach. No, a data breach is when somebody breaks into a system and takes information out. This was a leak where the Department of Justice, because of their total lack of anything good, anything smart, anything wise, technological common sense, release this information out into the internet. It is now out there. Now, some people say, well, you know, so what if a little bit of information for a few people went out? No, this is everybody who ever applied for a concealed carry weapons permit, whether they were granted or denied. over the last 10 years. This is everybody who has purchased or sold a gun in the state of California for who knows how long. Everybody who is on the California registration list of assault weapons. So if people who complied with the law and wanted to keep their so-called assault weapons in original configuration and they registered them with the state, that list has been released. Also, the database for the people participating in the gun violence restraining orders, the red flags. So the people that ostensibly should have their identities protected more than anyone else because they are in fear of their lives. That information was released and they can't get it back. That horse has left the barn. That cat is out of the bag. I don't know. I don't care how you characterize it. That information is in the internet and will be there forever. Now, people say, so what? Well, not only can they do, they've given them, the first 3 legs of a 4-legged stool to steal identities. They have also given criminals a roadmap, 2 kinds of roadmaps. One roadmap showing where there is a very high degree probability that the people whose address they have guns in their homes. And if their goal is to steal guns, they have a roadmap as to where they are and where they can go steal them. The other thing is you look at it the other way, is that criminals now know which homes to avoid because they believe them to be armed and they don't want to face an armed encounter as they steal, rob, rape, murder, do whatever it is that they do. So this thing is, and guys, I was in committee when the bill passed that authorized the state of California to share some of the sensitive information with research groups. Now, of course, it's the research groups that they pick. Do you ever think that Professor Lott and his research group would ever be able to have access to this information? Not in your life, because he comes out with conclusions that support the Second Amendment. But this information, they testified. We have triple redundancies to make sure that this data is secure and will never be released to the public. Well,
kind of like the redundancies they had within the state.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that it was just concealed carry owners, but apparently I'm in the list too, having had purchased numerous firearms in the last 10 years in the state of California. So that's a ton of people, including myself, just for having purchased. And so I didn't know that, but that's not that it's any better. It's not. I mean, it's just, there's more people for sure, because I don't have a concealed carry permit myself. But exactly. I don't like it. And of course, what are you going to do now that it's out there? It was simply released into a public database, or
well, what they did, they developed a dashboard because they wanted to be all about this government transparency stuff. So they created a dashboard so that people can go and they can go and gain information about how many concealed weapons permits they are, how many are in their county or their community, but they weren't supposed to have access to all of the personal data. This was supposed to be people's ability to look at the numbers and the statistics and stuff like that. Well, they missed the mark by about way more than a country mile. They just put everything out there. They allowed. I've talked to some software experts and database experts and computer experts, and those that are familiar with this kind of stuff say that it is incomprehensible that the Department of Justice could be so moronic and ill-equipped. It is almost criminally dumb for them to do what they did. This kind of stuff doesn't happen except in government, especially at the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Well, it
So
was sold. It was sold. It was sold as that individuals could get aggregated data. The data
Correct.
could be aggregated. I think no lower than the county level, if I'm not mistaken. And then all of a sudden we have this release that where data could be obtained on the personal level. I mean,
Correct.
I mean, you're right, Sam. It was a country mile. I would have said a country 10 miles maybe, because how do you go from aggregating at a county level all the way down to the individual? I mean, it requires a degree of moronic actions is unbelievable. So this could not have been inadvertent. This is something that was done deliberately, maybe even, as you say, criminally done.
well, it reminds me of when they leaked the information on the SCOTUS decision that was ongoing on
Right.
the abortion issue,
Yes.
and so it's a similar thing. So today, if the left doesn't like where the political stance is on a government entity, the people within apparently will have no compunction whatsoever, no guilt involved in releasing data in an illegal fashion. No qualm whatsoever about that.
Well, let me add a little bit more fuel to the fire on this issue too, and maybe we could get the visual up on this. But it's not just government; apparently, it's their allies in big tech as well. So, we see Democrats pushing for the credit card companies and others to find ways to create these databases as well. So, certainly, this particular article talks about Senator Warren pushing credit card companies to track gun and ammunition purchases, and so lo and behold, it happens. And we see that their allies in big tech make this kind of thing happen. But it's not even just the credit card companies. That's a fairly recent development. But groups like PayPal and stuff for the last several years have been just flat out banning transactions on ammunitions and guns as well. So, what do you guys think about that too? This pile on, it's not just government, it's their allies as well, which we kind of see the same assault on free speech too. So what do you guys think about
But
that?
they're doing these things. You see, this is where the violation of our rights come in here. Because yes, these companies are private companies, but for the most part, they are doing these things at the behest of the government. That's really problematic in terms of our freedoms and our liberties. This is the Second Amendment we're talking about, okay? The Second Amendment, it's in our Constitution. And these people think they have the right to do this at the behest of the government. And this is where the problem begins. Fine, if it's a private company choosing to do this on their own, that'll be fine. But when the government is telling them to do it or threatening them if they don't, this is a real problem in terms of our rights here as Americans.
Guys, this is a very interesting situation in that you're absolutely right, Leon. These are private companies. They can do anything they want. The government knows that it is illegal under federal law for them to establish a database of gun owners and guns. When they check the NICS system, they're supposed to, to approve somebody's background check to buy a gun, they're supposed to destroy those records within a very short period of time. So there has been some collusion, in my opinion, between the government and the credit card companies. And the credit card companies, I'm not letting them off the hook, but people need to understand they have been drug into this thing in a very bad way, because there's no actual way for a credit card company to identify that somebody purchased a gun or ammunition. All they can say is that they purchased something at a sporting goods store or a gun store. You see, those transactions are not in a form where they can identify what they are. And the companies went along with the government because they've got a pretty good deal with the government and they don't want to tick the government off. Well, now they're ticking off their customers. And several of the companies have said, we're going to rethink this whole thing, because they didn't say they're losing tons of customers. And they exist on credit card subscribers. And when they lose a lot of them, all of a sudden, oops,
Yeah.
We need to rethink this, and that's where we are right now. And by the way, with regards to the release of data, and last week a federal district court ruled. In California, we've had a law that said that the sheriffs and chiefs of police are required to release the names and addresses of CCW holders under a Public Records Act request, especially when it's from the media. So they have been doing that. Thankfully, very few members of the media go to all that trouble to do that. Well, some of our colleagues filed a lawsuit, and the court said, you know what? Even though it's California law, that's a violation of federal privacy law or rights, and that law is illegal. So now chiefs and sheriffs are no longer required to release private data about CCW holders. But it's this. They know they cannot come with us with a frontal assault, so they're doing all these things to go the long way around the barn in order to try to restrict us of our rights, our God-given, pre-Constitution existing rights to protect ourselves with whatever means we wanted or believed we needed to protect owners, not the stuff that the government thinks we should have to protect ourselves, but what we believe we needed. And that's what we're fighting for. That's why Gun Owners of California, Gun Owners of America, we are absolutely no compromise. Somebody wants to buy a cannon, it was legal to own cannons back in 1791. So we're okay with that. Nobody's robbing convenience stores with cannons. So
not very concealable.
Sometimes cars right through the window, just like a cannon, I guess.
Cannon's hard to conceal.
Yeah, very.
It's true.
And hard to move around.
Yeah. Well, though, when you're talking about using these, I guess, alternative methods to assault our rights on the Second Amendment, what they're also doing too is they're also squeezing the gun owners, or not the gun owners, but the firearm industry as well, by going after them and saying that, hey, look, if you make a product that works as advertised, but you misuse it, you could still be sued. Now, I don't know, can Ford be sued for that? Was that, by the way, was that a Ford that happened in, what was it, Wisconsin or wherever, where they drove through the parade and killed all those people, and that guy's on trial right now? Can they be sued because that guy decided to drive that car through that parade?
Using the same logic.
Using the same logic, yes, exactly. Using the same logic, yes. The guy, by the way, just trivia, the guy was convicted, Jason, but go ahead, though. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. I just saw some crazy news out there of him trying to defend himself and in the court, and just launching assaults against the judge and everybody else, just crazy screeds. But the bottom line, though, is he used a product that was not designed to go and just create mayhem, but it can be used in that way if that's what the way somebody decides they're dead set in their mind to use it. Well, here you have these guns that people use to defend themselves against creeps like this. And, they want to be able to sue these companies for making these things. And, I tell you, with as many, as favorable as Democrats seem to be nowadays to putting guys like that out on the street that are going to potentially be assaulting you, I think, this is, we don't want these, gun manufacturing companies to be sued into silence. So what do you guys think about this?
Well, the whole thing is that these issues about the Second Amendment, it is raising some really complicated constitutional issues, because why is the Second Amendment always treated like the bastard child of the Constitution? We have why is not? We have a First Amendment. We don't. Nobody ever talks about. Well, nowadays, even the First Amendment is under attack now.
Yeah.
All of our constitutional rights are under attack. The First, the Fourth, the Second, the 10th Amendment. They're all under attack, I guess. But the point is, though, the Second Amendment have always been treated as a bastard child. Like if this is somebody that we just, it's there, but we don't have to love it like we love the other amendments. We don't have to love that freedom like we love the other freedoms. And this is a real problem. And even when there are laws, even when the Supreme Court have handed down decisions that's supposed to protect those rights, the states, well, I guess we'll talk about that later. The states are trying to find ways to get around those Supreme Court decisions. So this is a real complicated issue that we're trying to deal with. And I hope as we move forward with the makeup of the courts, that we'll see more of our rights being lifted up rather than being trampled down by some of these people who call themselves these gun control activists, is what they call themselves. These people are nothing but a bunch of crazy lunatics.
Yeah, I think that's it. I know Sam's got a lot to say about this, and I'm anxious to hear. I think that a lot of this has to do with people's fear and hatred of private firearm ownership. They love government owning firearms. They love that. Oh yeah,
yes,
and support that all the way as far as they can. But you and I and the average Joe and Mary cannot own. Oh gosh, no, you can't do that. So that's why it's attacked constantly. But and when a product is designed to fire a projectile, and it or in the case of a shotgun, a group of projectiles. Then and it functions perfectly fine at that. Fortunately, the federal part of this whole thing realized that this is open for lawsuits, even though the product is being utilized. The product is totally functional as designed, but because it's able to fire projectiles, then its design is potentially lethal. Okay, as designed, right? Okay, sure. I mean, cars are too potentially lethal.
yes.
Just get hit by one and find out. So so they had this foresight. Now, I think what Sam is going to talk about next, and I hope he does, is whether or not the state of California can move forward with this and actually have a successful lawsuit against a gun manufacturer for manufacturing a perfectly functional firearm when it is misused by somebody in the death of another individual. So what say you, Sam?
Well, thank you for that very straight softball pitch right down the middle. First of all, Leon, you are a wordsmith master par excellence.
Yes,
Even Justice Thomas
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
called the Second Amendment, referred to it as people look at it as a second class right. And you more appropriately and colorfully called it a bastard right. And that
bastard child.
That hits home. That's exactly how people should be looking at it. So this is a super interesting topic. First of all, we have a federal law on the books that prevents people from filing lawsuits against people in the firearms commerce chain just frivolously. They did exactly what you believe exactly what you said under the federal law, Tim, that a firearms manufacturer cannot be sued because somebody illegally used their product. Now, they can be sued if they manufactured a product that is wrong. It's just a bad design or flawed or anything like that. They can sue all day long, but they cannot be sued. But the reason that Governor Newsom
I like that gruesome Newsom.
Somebody's been saying that gruesome thing.
The reason that he pushed for this law was not because, he knows that a California state law cannot be used to sue gun manufacturers. He used it as a knee-jerk reaction to the Supreme Court's decision not to stay the abortion law in Texas that was going through the court process. All the Supreme Court said is, okay, we're not going to issue a stay or a temporary restraining order preventing the Texas law from going into effect. So while the law the case continues to go through the legal process. Newsom was so incensed with that he kind of went like, okay, what can I use that logic? Guns. We're going to do it against guns. So we're going to allow anybody who thinks that something about some gun is uncomfortable or mean or dangerous can file a lawsuit against any dealers, any publishers, any wholesalers, and any manufacturers because somebody misused a gun or because they were afraid of those guns. They looked too dangerous. Now, I say that, and it sounds really silly to think that is California state law, but it is. And if you don't accept the fact that in California, they are willing to pass silly laws that they know they're going to have handed to them in a basket so they can sit on it for the rest of their lives at some point, that's the reality. Now, the public in California, we have hundreds of thousands of new gun owners that have, for the very first time, purchased guns in the state of California.
And by the way, if our invisible hand, James, can we get this issue up there too? I wanted to show a graphic on this.
Sure.
And just lead us out of the show, Sam, because we got a hard stop at 28 minutes.
Yeah, copy that. So we have hundreds of thousands and millions of new gun owners throughout the country. 412,059 new gun owners. That kind of tells you that people are not are understanding and learning about their Second Amendment rights and doing something about it and buying guns. So that shows that the public is getting sick and tired of the government promising to protect them and then not being able to. And then they realize that, hey, I am my own first line of defense, so I need to buy a gun.
Wow. Well, Sam, this is election season as well. And so, my gosh, this is a great story that you guys have up here on your website. Is there other things that people can do if they're concerned about the Second Amendment right now and they want a little bit of advice on how to vote?
Yes, you can do two things. You can go to our website and either click on About and then go to the GOC PAC. You can look at scorecards for your senators and state assembly people and who the good guys are and the bad guys are, guys and gals. You can look at the congressional ratings that have been issued by Gun Owners of America. Since Gun Owners of California, we don't actually recommend positions on ballot measures, but we get hundreds of phone calls and say, okay, Sam, how are you going to vote? So I decided to go ahead. Okay, I'm going to put up a ballot measure thing up there, and I list how I would vote on all of the ballot measures that are up there. And then our buddy Craig Huey's got a link. He has done yeoman's work to do whatever he can to identify who Second Amendment judges are and who aren't. And you can click on that.
Awesome, Sam. And we're going to have you back on another one, and you can tell us a little more about that, but we're at a hard stop. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. And until the next one, stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.